Well, hello and welcome to another Lunch and Learn Hangout session sponsored by AT Still University Information Technology and Services Group. We're back after a couple of months off for the summer, and since we've been gone, Google has made some enhancements to the Hangouts on Air tool that we use. And one of the things that we've noticed from these enhancements is that it's becoming more evident that the Hangouts on Air is a broadcasting tool. And so we've had a little internal change that we're making, and we're going to adopt the language of broadcasting. So where in the past we've kind of struggled a little on what to call these lunch and learns. Were they meetings? Were they courses? Were they sessions? We're now just going to go forward and embrace the whole broadcasting paradigm and call them episodes. So welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of ITS Lunch and Learns. The timing will be pretty consistent to what we've done in the past. We'll continue to do these every other week, and we'll do them at noon on alternating campuses. But we will also continue to experiment a little bit with the format and continue to try and bring a level of interactivity to the episodes. So speaking of interactivity, Google has now enhanced the Hangouts on Air to have a tool for in-session questions. So where in the past we had people try to put their questions in the comments section, now when you participate there's an opportunity for you to just add questions directly through the tool in Google+. So we invite you to do that. Go ahead and post your questions there. And I think we're going to have a great season, just trying to embrace this verbiage. And we've got several good topics for episodes. So I want to put in a plug for a couple of upcoming episodes on October 15th and October 29th. We will be in Arizona on the 15th and back in Kirksville on the 29th for a forum session with Dr. Phelps and Dr. Gevitz doing kind of an open forum with each of the campuses. So I think those will be good sessions, so please tune in for those. We've also got episodes where we've got lineups for happenings in Mazdo, talk a little bit about the new dental program in Missouri. The iPad initiative, 1 year after implementation for a couple of programs there, and we've got someone from the ASDO program who's going to help us out with that. Johnny, thank you. We'll try and do a little bit of an update on San Diego and St. Louis, and then we've got another episode planned for diversity and safe zone. So I think it's going to be a good season, and as always, please send any ideas that you have for sessions to us at the help desk to either Gino or I. So today we're going to have a guest host try and help us out a little bit. So one of the things that we'll try and do this season is show you a little bit more about who ITS is and some of all of our staff. So I'm going to turn it over to Mason Van. Mason is an analyst with our applications group, and let him kind of go.
All right, so what we're going to try and do today is, in a moment here, I'm going to give it back to Brian, and he's going to give kind of a high-level overview of ITS related to structure and function. And during that presentation, he's hoping to hit several of the questions that we received so far through the moderator link that went out, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and then sent out an email last week. So he's going to try and cover those. But if during his presentation, if there's something not covered or if there's new questions that come up, feel free to submit those new questions in the question area, and then afterwards we're just kind of going to have a question and answer time that we're going to try and hit as many of those as possible. So Brian, I'll give it back to you for the kind of this high-level overview.
All right, good. Thanks, Mason. So if you look at the slides that I've got prepared, that'll help me walk through things and hopefully help you understand a little bit better. Really what we're hoping to do with this session is spend maybe 20-25 minutes, if I can cut it down that much, to just do an overview of ITS and really get a better appreciation of the scope of services that ITS provides, kind of an understanding about who does what, and some knowledge about how the department is organized. So I'm going to start out by just trying to create some scope. And just putting numbers up on the board. So the first number is 11,800. So what does 11,800 represent? That is the number of user accounts, approximately, the number of user accounts that we have. And you think, 11,000, we don't have that many students. That's right, we don't. But increasingly, we're providing more and more accounts where people who are interested in ATSU, we have partners, we have alumni, really anyone who's building a relationship with ATSU is increasingly getting an account on our systems so that we can work with them, get to know them a little bit more, and provide services to them. So 11,800 is the first number. Next, the number 17. 17 is the number of locations where AT Still University has equipment. So obviously we have the two main campuses with Arizona and Missouri, but in addition to that we have a couple of clinics. We have the 11 community health centers where we have equipment, so that number comes up to about 17. Next we have the number 19. Number 19 is about the number of major packaged applications that we provide support for. And if you were to add on all of the other applications, you know, the small little applications, I'm sure that it would number in triple digits. But 19 is the number of big ones. And just to give you a sense of scope again, that requires about 5,700 hours of work per year just to support those key applications. Those would include things like Microsoft Dynamics, Campus View, and we'll go through all of the applications a little bit later. All right, next number, 1,061. 1,061 is the number of devices that ATSU owns, workstations basically, but this number is really low when if we're trying to represent the number of devices that we work on. And that's because it doesn't include any student devices. And in addition to student devices, it's no longer just one per student. So now students are bringing a laptop, they may be bringing a mobile phone, they may be bringing a tablet. So we're guessing the average number of devices per student brought to campus is somewhere between 2 and 3, which would bring this number up close to that 10,000 number of devices. So it gives you a little bit of scope on just what we have to do from a support standpoint. And then the last one is a little bit more fun, 202 trillion. And the trillion's down below and small, but 202 trillion represents our storage space. So 202 terabytes is essentially what that represents, 202 trillion bytes, but 200 terabytes. It's not a tremendous amount by comparison to larger organizations, but it's certainly a large amount in comparison to where we were you know, even 3-4 years ago. So a lot of data. So that gives you a little sense of scope of what ITS provides. In terms of organizational structure, we fall within the Division of Research Grants and Information Systems. I report to Dr. John Hurd. He's the VP for Research Grants and Information Services or Systems. And of course there are other groups besides IT, you know, the SRI groups, the sponsored program groups. But from an IT standpoint, we really have 3 major categories of service. So on the far left, you've got the IT Support Center. On the far right, you've got Network Technologies. In the middle, that category is Application Development and Services. We really break that down into academic technologies and administrative systems. And we'll go through the reasons behind some of that. But really, it's those 3 major categories, and it represents 4 departments. So the Support Centers, the Help Desk, Academic Technologies, Administrative Systems, and then Network Technologies. All right, let's start first by going to the Support Center. So if we talk about the Support Center is also known as the Help Desk, probably more commonly known as the Help Desk. That group is managed by Gene. Gene Varnold is our manager there. And across the bottom, we forgot to introduce everybody, but we'll kind of do that along. So Gene, if you just kind of wave down at the bottom. She's on the far left on my screen. This group is broken down kind of by campus, or it's at least represented by campus here. So on the left-hand side, we've got the Missouri campus, with Tammy, Brian, Rob, and Rachel are the technicians on the Missouri campus. And then on the right we have the Arizona campus with Ryan, JT, Scott, and Robbie. And we try to have the technicians really be able to handle any type of issue. So we had a question, I think it was Jermaine who sent in a question about, can the Arizona campus, for example, have their own help desk? And naturally that kind of happens just because of the geographic separation and people in the same area. But what we're really trying to achieve is when someone calls into the help desk, any of the technicians can answer any question. It's a little unrealistic in some cases, but we're getting closer and closer to that. And there are some reasons for that. One is it's just easier to balance the workload. So on occasion we'll have issues that are going on one campus where we really have to provide all of the technicians to that issue for orientation or something. So the help desk can then at the other campus provide coverage. It really helps with cross-training. So if we have different skill sets on the different campuses, we have coverage and cross-training so that when some person is on vacation, we don't lose that entire skill set. So the idea is really to be location independent, and more, most or many of our user base are not on either campus as well. If you think of the students who are out doing rotations or the online programs, we have a lot of people that we're supporting who aren't on either campus anyway. So there's some natural inclination to want to have a local help desk, and we do from a local presence standpoint, but from a technician standpoint, we really want that call to be able to be answered by any of the technicians. In addition, we've got the iPad work study students down below on the Missouri side. They kind of help us support the initiatives with the iPad, and then we also provide, Gene's group also manages the after-hours support who handle the calls after normal business hours and on weekends and holidays. So major responsibilities, what are some of the things that they do? I'm just going to put these up here quick, and then we'll go through each of them in on their own. But these are the major responsibilities for this group. So let's look first at the help desk services. The help desk is really where the day-to-day interaction with employees and students happen. Really, this group is all about. I'm just going to silence my phone here for a minute. Is really all about that initial contact. So for pretty much any question, and we would like it to be more and more any question, you can contact the help desk, and that's your first point of service. If you look at the ITS page, you'll see that there are 4. In ITS, I'll put a plug in. It's its.atsu.edu. On the left-hand side, you'll see that there are 4 ways to contact the help desk. The first one is to submit a ticket. And that will allow you to go directly into our work order system, and you can create a ticket on your own. That would be the preferred method, because typically that is the best way for information to get shared, is when someone enters it directly into the ticket. You can also send a work order in via chat, or I'm sorry, via email. And email will automatically create a work order as well. So that's another good way. And then we can always be available by phone on the 2200 exchange, and there's an 800 version of that 2200 number where students and people who are off-site can call in, and then in person, either on the Arizona or the Missouri campus. So from that first point of contact, we really try to capture all of the information in our work order system. And the job of the technician at that point is to gather all of the facts about what the issue is, and then, if necessary, assign it to the proper person. So what tends to happen is if people bypass that first order or that first contact of service and they go directly to someone, we get misaligned priorities, because someone's going directly, they're in your face, and the priorities can more easily get messed up. So by putting things into the work order system, gathering the facts, we can prioritize a little bit better what issues need to be addressed by what skill sets. So the help desk does a good job of assigning what tickets go to which group, and then the last thing there is to close them when complete. So that gives us a chance to get some feedback and understand whether the issue was resolved completely, how satisfied the end user was with the professionalism of the person solving the problem, the timeliness of the issue being solved. So that's really the idea behind the work order system. Um, the next bullet point there, we used to have training up, but with the changing nature of application support, we don't do the same kind of training that we used to. You know, it used to be that you could have a question about Excel or want to learn more about Excel, and we would bring people into a class almost. It really was a classroom, and provide an hour on Excel. People are too busy for that anymore, and the applications are too specialized. So it's increasingly difficult for the help desk to be able to be the everything for everyone kind of answer person. And what we're focusing them on more and more is to be the filter and the finder and help format helpful information, whether that's linking you to links online, helping you Google the right search criteria to find what you need, formatting documentation so that they can then have it in our system so that when another question comes up, we have the answer to those. But really, what we're trying to do is be the filter for getting information to you, whether that's written support documentation, links, or videos to help you do what you need to do. And then the last role that the help desk plays is really the notification of critical information. So that's why you'll always see the notices come through the help desk for downtime, system rollouts, those kinds of things. All right. Another thing that the support center does, or the help desk does, is they're responsible for collecting feedback on services. So there are 3 types of surveys that we do. The first one is the one that we do least often. That's a specialized ad hoc survey. Really, that's to determine the end user perception of special events. You know, if we had a rollout of a new system, and it helps us to improve planning, kind of notification of different events, and get feedback on what we could have done better for a particular service. The second bullet point is the work order closure survey. That one is the one that we do most commonly. That is a survey that goes out whenever a work order is closed. And I'll tell you, Gene looks through those daily to see what kind of comments come in and how we can get better with those. So a lot of times people will say, you know, so-and-so did a really great job for me, and we try to spread that news. We love that kind of good news in those feedbacks. But occasionally someone will come back and say, you know, this issue really isn't resolved, or it could have been done a lot quicker. That information is helpful too. So those work order closure surveys are really important. And then finally, we do our annual survey. And the annual survey is typically done in the spring, and then we give the results right about now. In fact, our annual survey has just been finished up, and we'll get those results out yet this week so that you'll see them. We're pretty pleased with the report card for this year. It shows that over the last couple of years, things are going in the right direction. That's not to say that there's not work that we need to do. But the annual survey gives us kind of an overall view of ITS services and how well we're doing. It's got both objective information and some kind of qualitative information where there are open-ended questions. And we take those open-ended questions, and all of the comments that come in from that survey, we then have a card sorting exercise that we go through where we try to categorize them and put them all in groups so that all of the Blackboard issues kind of get grouped, all of the classroom support issues get grouped, all of the network issues get grouped, and then those go to each of the managers so that they can make decisions on, you know, how can I improve these services. So 3 types of surveys that go out. The help desk or the support center is the one that manages all of that. Next, we're going to go into kind of the life cycle of computer equipment. So the first part of that life cycle is, of course, purchasing. So purchasing the equipment goes through the help desk, and that's Gene's group, equipment acquisition. Mostly we're talking about equipment, but occasionally it's software licensing. The help desk also helps manage all of our licensing. We try to set and maintain some standards. That's becoming more and more difficult as apps are easily downloaded and different people have different preferences. We just want you to be productive. While we like to have standards and we'll try and set and maintain them as best we can, we know that that's not always realistic. We make lots of recommendations on purchases. Do I need this or that? That's a common thing that we do. Vendor relations. Gene spends a fair amount of time working with our vendors, following up on purchases, talking about new technology that's coming in, negotiating pricing for different equipment. So that's all part of that initial part of the life cycle on purchasing. We are on a 4-year computer refresh, so every 4 years equipment should be refreshed, and that comes through the annual budget process where we replace about 25% of the equipment each year. After stuff is purchased, then we have to install it. So the help desk is responsible for getting all of the workstations at someone's desk, employee's desk. They handle all of the peripherals, and then they repair and maintain both university and student-owned computers. So that's where I said that initial number where we talk about the 1,061 is definitely underrepresented. We have a lot more equipment than that we work on. We've heard from people that we need not only PC type support but also Apple support. So we do have one Apple repair specialist, and I think there are 4 of our technicians who are going through certification process right now. So we'll soon have even more. They already know a lot more than they did a couple of years ago, but just to get that certification. And then also on installation and repair, the phone system in the Arizona campus and parts of the Missouri campus are handled by the support center. Okay, the last part of kind of that whole life cycle is the equipment inventory. So frequently when we're talking about licensing or if we need to change something with the system, we'll ask the question, how many users do we have that have this type of software? All of that is maintained by the help desk. They can get that kind of information, the number of users that we have, the number of computers that we have, the number of computers with certain types of software. That all is supported through the help desk. So that's a decent overview of what the help desk does. In general, they are responsible for the desktop. Okay, so if you think of the help desk, they're dealing typically with issues that affect one user at a time. It may be a couple of users, but typically it's one user at a time. So whether it's a student who's having a problem, whether it's an employee who's having a problem, and the desktop systems that they support would be like the Microsoft and Apple operating systems, Microsoft Office, as well as all of the other scattered applications, from Camtasia to Articulate to Photoshop to Adobe type applications, file and print services, spam, virus protection. Some of those services are on the desktop, and that's really what they manage. And we're going to contrast that with the next group that we're going to talk about. So now we're getting into the applications group. And the applications group is the group that's really responsible for those major applications that are used throughout campus, but don't sit necessarily on someone's desktop. They're running off of servers either in our environment or a lot of times up in off the internet somewhere in what they call the cloud. So the applications team, as I said before, is broken up into 2 groups. We've got the academic technologies group and we've got the administrative systems group. They do a lot of the same things in terms of dealing with data and manipulating data and integration between those the 2 areas. So that's the reason that we really feel it's important to keep them under kind of one common thread, because there's a ton of overlap, whether it's programming or interfacing or using data between the systems. We really need to have someone who understands both sides. So Kurt is responsible for all of the application development and services, and then Dean Mogg is responsible for the academic technologies portion of it, and Kurt pretty much manages the administrative side of that. You can see they're pretty equally balanced in terms of personnel, with 9 on the academic side and 8 on the administrative side. And if we look at the administrative systems, Kurt's group is made up of these people. So we've got Barb Fitzgerald and Linda Sutton, are both based at the Missouri campus. Barb deals mostly with the financial systems. She has a background in accounting as well as IT. So she's mostly the business analyst for things like Great Plains, our financial systems, those types of things, HR systems. Linda is a little bit different flavor. She deals more with the campus view applications. And Mason is one of the people, along with Tony Maddox, where we're doing something called embedding. And so Mason's office and Tony's office are right within the groups that they work with. So even though they're part of the IT group, their office is right within the area that they work. So Mason's office is up with all of the administrative systems in the student affairs area. So he's right across from financial aid, the registrar, admissions, and that's the work that he does, is help them both from a data side and from a business process side. Tony is our clinical analyst. So we have several clinical systems that we need to maintain, and Tony helps the clinic for the Missouri campus and handles the electronic health records there. In addition, on this team, we have Steve Emland, who's our web designer. We'd love to get Steve focused a little bit more on internal websites. Right now, he's kind of helping with the transition, along with communications and marketing, on the public website. So Steve does that as well as the internal stuff, but he's very busy keeping web stuff updated. And then we have a couple of programmers, Randy Shockley and Kathy Chambly. They're responsible for the title's developer, but programmer is probably a fair categorization as you think of it. They're responsible for custom code. We do have some custom code that we maintain, as well as interfacing with different systems. We have several services that bring data into the university for all of the applications that we get, and they create interfaces and feeds to our package systems from those interfaces. So that's the administrative team. So what do? They provide second-tier support on administrative issues. So when the help desk realizes that the question is too much in depth for them, then they would pass it off to someone, the appropriate person on the administrative team. They deal a lot with major software systems implementations and upgrades. So this group will be responsible. For example, we just recently put in the new Talisma system and upgraded it so that it integrates better with Campus View. So that's handled by our administrative systems team. Custom programming and integration between systems, those kind of go hand in hand. When you're trying to integrate systems, there's typically custom programming that needs to be done. We maintain the websites in conjunction with communications and marketing. And then administering those major administrative systems is really about the upgrades. So these systems are always changing. Different functionality is put into the system. Keeping users up to date on what those changes are, making sure that the databases are clean, making sure that data is getting backed up, with all of the business processes that go around that. That's the type of administration that this group does. Okay. If we look at the applications team, really the same kind of functions, but really with an academic focus. So this is the newest or most recent of our groups. It's headed up by Dean. Dean Mogg is the manager of this group. And the services that they provide are still a little bit in flux. We're trying to get this a little bit tighter. Where we have Jamie Carroll, who's a graphic designer. Excellent work done by Jamie. If you guys have ever seen any of the poster presentations done by many of our faculty, Jamie's responsible for a lot of that. He does a lot of research support and graphic design. And then you'll notice that we have several people who are involved in video. And the titles here are probably not quite right, so I apologize for that. But we've got on the Missouri campus, Corey Sanford and Barb Bevel. They're both responsible for video, and video is probably the majority of where we interface with the classroom. So whether it's classroom support and the video components that are at work there with just the presentation material, whether it's Echo 360 and recording what's going on in the classroom, whether it's bringing in outside speakers and using video conferencing for that, that's all handled through the academic technologies team. And when I say that, a lot of the video conferencing sessions are not necessarily just academic. So, we may have administrative meetings that are supported from this same team, just because that's where the skill set is. So these people are all well trained on video conferencing and understanding those technologies. And then we've got on the far right over here, we've got our Blackboard gurus, Brent Rasmussen and Jeremy Andrews. They're both responsible for administration of Blackboard. And when I say administration, it's really the same kind of things that the administrative team does. Manage functionality is coming, how users are using that new functionality, understanding where data is going within those systems. What we haven't done a very good job of is really understanding support. And I always worry a little bit, what the IT version of academic technologies is a little bit different than what the academic side version of academic technologies is. So I'm trying to clear up that disconnect a little bit. We are trying to get more skills in the ability to support those tools. So Barb has some instructional design, Kelly has some instructional design, but really those fall within the programs themselves who have that, and increasingly we're trying to work with the library to provide those services. So if you look at Bill Coombs and Margaret Hoogland on the Missouri campus, they're increasingly trying to provide those services as well. So we know that we need to have more of those services, and we're working to try and provide them. So if you look at their major responsibilities, very similar to what the administrative team does: second-tier support for academic issues, major academic software systems implementation and integration between those systems, and then classroom recording and video support is a little bit different from the administrative side. And then there's some other services that this group does as well that I kind of think fall into no man's land. It's because they've done a good job with these things that this group continues to provide these services. They're very valuable in terms of saving the institution money from a signage perspective, graphic illustration, research posters. And events. Events are a big service that we provide, where white coat ceremonies, graduations, you'd be amazed how much effort goes into that from this group. All right, I'm going to try and go fast. So applications overview. One of the goals that we're hoping to achieve with this presentation is to help people understand what are all of the different applications. So we talked a little bit about desktop systems. Then on top of the desktop systems, all of these other systems run from the desktop. So we've got what we call academic systems, administrative systems, research, and clinical systems. We break those up into that category simply for convenience sake, because it's easier to understand them a little bit better. So let's go through each of those individually. We've gone through the desktop and core systems a little bit. Let's go through administrative systems. So Campus View. Campus View is probably our biggest one with the student information system. In addition to the Campus View system, we have Talisma Fundraising and Talisma CRM, but all three of those systems are owned by campus management. But they are truly three independent systems. So Alumni Development has Talisma Fundraising, and then our lead management is managed by Talisma CRM. So those are three of the big systems, all owned by Campus View or campus management. Our financial, purchasing, HR, and payroll systems are Microsoft Dynamics. And then there are some subsystems associated with that as well, Green Shades and McCorma, that are also supported by us within the administrative team. Integration between Campus View and Blackboard. So when a student is enrolled in a course, there's information that needs to go from Campus View to Blackboard telling them that that student is now a part of that course. Document imaging is our ImageNow system. And this is an area that's been expanding tremendously. So we now have 37 different workflows through that document imaging system. TK20 is a system that does a lot of different things. And what you'll see with many of these systems is we bring them in to fit one particular need, but over time those systems expand. And as they expand, they cover areas that other systems also cover. So now we've got two tools that kind of do the same thing. And so it gets a little bit difficult to know which one to use in which situation. TK20, the niche that it fills is connecting activities that we do in in each of the schools with our strategic plans. So TK20 is a system that helps us connect the dots, if you will, from an accreditation standpoint. How much are we doing in terms of interprofessional education? What TK20 can do is it can go through and look at all of the different courses and understand from the surveys and the objectives of those courses which have components of interprofessional education. And then we can run reports for the accreditors or for our internal administration to understand what our priorities are and how we're filling, how different projects are filling the objectives that we have in the strategic plans. Student application management, that's a custom tool that we support. Website support. More and more we're getting into analytics. There's a ton of systems that we pull the data out of, try and build a data warehouse, and then analyze that data and use analytics to show that data in different methods, in different ways. And then we are always getting additional administrative systems. So a new one on the docket is contract management, which will help from our legal standpoint and also for the clinical staff. A lot of the clinical staff, when students go out on rotations, there are tons of contracts that they need to manage. So this system helps that too. So that gives you a sense of just how broad the administrative systems are. Academic systems, we've got Blackboard. And within Blackboard as our learning management system, we've got several others. We've got Easy Proxy, Respondus, Parachat. These are all systems that kind of link with Blackboard to either provide services to the library, services for online testing. ExamSoft is an online testing tool. Echo 360 is what we use to record all of the sessions that are on campus. All of the classroom AV, those systems would all fall within the academic group. Video production, streaming, conferencing, so Google Hangouts, life-size video, all of the Scopia tools all would fall under there. Blackboard Collaborate is another web-based tool. We've got things like Camtasia and Articulate that are used to build tools for courses, graphics and medical illustration, and then survey data. Sorry, I'm trying to go fast so that we've got a chance for questions. I'm going to skip through clinical systems real quick. NextGen is the tool that we use for the electronic health record on the Missouri campus, and then on the Arizona campus, really we have a similar thing with the electronic dental record. We've just finished a big project with that. We're in the process of a big project with that for Dentrix, Dolphin, and Dexis. I think it's spelled wrong there. And then finally we have some research systems. This is probably the area that we're least involved in, but we do have several tools that are involved with research. That's an area that we're looking at. Okay, so that's the administrative and academic systems groups. Let's go into the one that probably is the most behind the scenes, and it should be that way. That's the network technologies group, and it's really about infrastructure. So I will go through this really quick so that we've got time for questions. So this group is managed by Tim Johnson. It's balanced again between the two campuses. It's about half and half with his team. We have Ian Leiter is our network engineer, and his group manages all of the switching and routing to make sure that your data, when you hit the enter key, gets to the right place and gets to the right place securely. We saw a need for additional security skills, and so we've moved Dustin Usher from the help desk team. He's now working on his degree in security, and so we've got him as our security analyst doing more work there. We've got Tom Hotvet, who works with the applications team a lot, managing the different databases that we have. And then Steve Calloway is another one of our network technicians on the infrastructure side, and he helps us manage all of the backups, all of the data storage that we have, and really maintains a lot of the server infrastructure. Okay, so I talked about the different locations. This is just a diagram that shows how extensive that really is. It really does cover the entire United States. What you'll notice here is that both campuses are hubs, and they actually connect to all of the community health centers, so that if one link goes down, there's still a way to get to that data from another link. Major responsibilities from the infrastructure side. Basically, their job is to make sure that things continue to run. so that you get to the data that you need when you need it from the internet, locally within our networks, making sure that you can get to all of the services that you require, what servers they are, and do that in a secure way. I'm going to skip through this. I don't know that too many people care about this. We are mostly on Microsoft servers. We have a wide variety of different things that they do. I think in terms of numbers of servers, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of between 150 and 200 different servers that we maintain. People used to think that those were all individual boxes, and at one time they were. What we do now, so that we can bring up systems relatively quickly and make modifications to systems in ways that don't affect you as the end user, we do virtual servers. So we have really 14 virtual servers that are running something called VMware. Those can each hold about 50 different servers that we traditionally think of. So a lot of these things are backed up in multiple ways. We also do things with our storage area network where we have data that's kept not just on one hard drive, but it's striped over multiple hard drives. Increasingly, those are at different locations. So we may keep one data set here in the Missouri campus and then have a copy of that data on the Arizona campus, and even in some cases where we're moving that stuff to the cloud. So if you think of things like our Gmail or our Google Docs, we may keep a copy of that data on our local systems and then have a copy of it up in the cloud as well. Wired versus wireless networks. So we've got fiber throughout both campuses. Wireless networks, I mentioned all of the different devices that people are coming with. So increasingly we've got higher stress on all of our wireless network. But to say that we've got pretty much 100% coverage on both campuses is pretty fair. And then the Cisco phone system, a lot of technology in that that covers all of the Arizona campus and then parts of the Missouri campus as well. And again, there are lots of integration opportunities with the phone system and video conferencing and whatnot. All right, so I'll go quick again. 100 meg from each of our campuses, and then 30 meg in between the different campuses. Basically, those are the size of pipes that we have, so that you can get the services that you need the time that you need them. I'll skip on security, and sorry, that was about as quick as I could go. So let's go to questions.
All right, let's look at some questions. Here's one that came up that's a really good question, and it relates to privacy concerns, and it's specifically related to like dental and medical clinics and HIPAA requirements and things along that line. But what can we say in general about our philosophy of approaching privacy and security related to health information and other sensitive data?
Tim, you want to go ahead and take that one?
Sure. We follow all the regulations of not only HIPAA but also FERPA when it comes to the data. So basically the bottom line is only those that need to see the data get to see the data. And we look at that from both a hardware perspective and a software security perspective as well. So we help advise users on the best communication methods for putting that data out there, what data should be considered to be secure in those different areas. For example, social security numbers, that kind of information will help the different departments and determine what makes the most sense in communicating that information. Email is not a good way to do that because it's not secure. So we'll find other ways to help them do that. But all data in general, regardless if it falls within the different regulations, we keep the secure, sensitive data for the university only available to those who see it, and then making sure that also not only internally but also external forces that would potentially want to get to that data, we put up firewalls and other methods to make sure that the bad guys stay out.
So we talk about security as kind of like an onion where you've got lots of different layers of the onion to try and secure different different types of data. So we use encryption, we use firewalls, we use just a variety of services to make sure that that data is secure.
Okay, Amy Duvall just posted another question. It's a really good question, and she's asking, in regards to application training, is there opportunity or is there any consideration for IT to fund further training for interested AT employees on things like Microsoft Office and Google Drive and things along that? Gene, would you mind speaking to that? Because I know we have a couple of things already, but maybe you could just give an overview.
No, I'd be happy to. Really, one of the best training avenues we have is lynda.com. If you've not tried it, you will be surprised at the offerings that they have, and they go in depth to Microsoft Office. I believe there is a bit on Google Drive, and Google has some great training on Google Drive. So I would ask you to first try some of those. We are trying to get our training and our help set up to where your first avenue is self-help, and lynda.com would fall perfectly into that as far as training goes. And then we're also providing setting up groups and communities, for instance the iPad community. So anyone interested in iPads, subscribing to that, they will learn more about iPads. They can ask questions about the iPad, so that is a great way to get some help. And then the other is, if it is really something in depth, we will try to find what you would call an expert on it. For instance, Tammy in our group is great with Excel, as is Kurt and Brian. So we would try to point you to someone that really knows what they're doing with that. So I hope that helps you, Amy.
All right, good. Let's see here. All right. Well, Brian, I think you might have to talk a little bit more about iPad printing. People are really liking that question, and I know you've already said some things, but could you just say a few things on that again?
Yeah, I think I responded in the moderator to that question. It's something that we're tracking, whether we should offer the ability to print through iPads. When we went to the iPad initiative, we talked to several of the students, and really part of the justification of the iPad initiative was to reduce printing. And so we understand, that's a different habit to get into, to try and eliminate printing and use the iPad instead of having printed copies of everything. So that's part of the mentality that we'd like to instill in people. Printing is expensive. It's messy in a lot of cases. So we're trying to avoid it. That said, we also know it's a reality. I think everyone within IT will tell you we print stuff as well, just to get a better sense of, sometimes you're not online and you don't have the material. Sometimes it's easier to organize material from a printed version. But from a student perspective, you can always print with your laptop. So currently we require not only the iPad but also the laptop. So if people have their laptops, they can print from their laptops rather than the iPads. But it is something that we're continuing to look at and considering.
All right. Here's a question, and Kurt, you might be the best one to grab this one. There's a question related to, is there an Access Database Builder, kind of resident at ATSU, but it's really kind of a broader scope of our philosophy towards, vendor-produced products versus homegrown custom products. Could you say anything about that?
Yes, absolutely. As far as having a database expert specifically for Microsoft Access, we've got a couple of folks that know it, but it's not an area that we tend to recommend that people use. And the biggest reason for that is people tend to develop these little access systems, and then one of three things happen, and we see this a lot, is they leave, and then the department comes and goes, can you maintain this for us? And we don't know anything about it. We didn't even know it existed. Two, it grows, and it gets really big and complicated, and they say, can you maintain this for us? And again, we don't have any idea of what it is, and then we have to try. Or three, it just becomes a maintenance nightmare, and we need to help get that under control. And that all takes time, and typically those databases tend to support a very small group of people, sometimes even just an individual. So we tend to recommend broader commercial-based applications, freeware, shareware off of the web as well. We take a look at, but something that's better supported, better designed, and that can help more people out. If folks are intent on using Microsoft Access and want to learn how to do it, as Gene said, lynda.com is a great spot to go out and take a look. They've got a number of hours worth of training on Microsoft Access and how to build and maintain Microsoft Access there. So if you're really intent on doing it, go out to lynda.com.
Yeah, we'd love to be able to offer that service. The problem is we can't even keep up with the big projects that we have, not to mention, dozens of these little projects where people are all looking for databases. Everybody wants more data. We understand that. But just like everybody else, we have to prioritize where our resources are going to go to. And at least at this point, we just don't have the resource to be able to dedicate to individual type database projects.
Good, good. All right, here's a question. Gene, this might be in your avenue here. There's several questions that relate to when is Windows going to be updated. There's another one, when is Word, Excel, the Office suite's going to be updated. Obviously, we're not running Windows 8 right now, and so could you, give some thoughts behind what our philosophy is on when we upgrade software like that, some desktop applications?
Sure. Quite frankly, our policy is be careful. Take it slowly. Make sure a product is stable before we introduce it. Make sure that it is what our users need, and then we go from there. Windows 8, we had a beta test group on it. They weren't terribly impressed with it, so we've decided just to hold off a little bit. Microsoft Office, we haven't done anything with it. Like I said, we usually wait until they have been out for a little while and we know they're stable, have some service packs on them, and so on and so forth. So we don't forget them. It's just that it may be a slow rollout to get them, and we may skip them. We skipped Vista because it was not a very good OS. So if you ever have reasoning to let us know why something would need to be accelerated, we'd look at it more closely. But we don't forget. We just take our time on it.
Yeah, upgrades are really a balancing act, and we have users on both ends of the spectrum, users who always want the latest and greatest, and users who, why did you change that? So it really is trying to balance when there's critical mass where people are really looking for new functionality or really need some new functionality. That's where we're trying to get to provide those upgrades. Otherwise, for a lot of people, it's really wasted effort in learning something new that they're not going to use that new functionality anyway.
All right. Here's another question related to academic technologies. Well, there's actually a couple of them, and Dean, you've already responded to some of these questions, but it's just a general question of what do you do versus communication and marketing. How do you interface there? What should people come to you guys for? What should people go to them for? So that's a big one.
Right. I think historically communications marketing, as we started out, we were a lot of us doing doing some of the same things for different groups of people, just depending on who came to us and who went to communications and marketing. And kind of the way I see it is
mostly for graphics, right?
For graphics,
I think this question is really about graphics, yeah.
Right. But the way I see it is more of the marketing and the public stuff that it goes out to the public is more communications and marketing. We try to work more on academic things for courses, course materials, graphs, research posters, things along those lines. But occasionally, communications and marketing will ask us for help, lend Jamie to them, and we have them help us out too. So usually, big jobs for print jobs too would go to communications and marketing. If you needed 1,000 pieces of paper printed, that's something that's a higher run than our machines are capable of doing.
Yeah, we have a lot of areas where there are skill sets that overlap with other groups. So in terms of graphics, we've got kind of academic technologies and communications and marketing. Web, same thing there. We've got some web people as well as communications and marketing. Really, the skill sets that we provide are needed in lots of different areas. And so we have to balance with what are those areas that we can get really good at that makes sense versus what areas should be developed within each of the other area, like the program areas. So I talked a little bit about like instructional designers. So we have instructional design type people almost in every program, just different numbers in different programs. There's some benefit in communicating, standards and work processes amongst those, but really when the program is trying to get ready for an accreditation visit, that really takes a back seat to them getting what they need. And so to centralize some of those skills doesn't necessarily make sense. What we're really trying to figure out is how to coordinate those skills so that people can play off of one another and they can share information. Oh, I did it this way. Oh, that's great. Why didn't I think of that? And I think that as we see, we've talked it through the strategic plan about a center for teaching and learning or a teaching and learning center. I think as we see that develop, that's going to be a little bit more focused effort on how do we coordinate some of those skill sets. But we talked about databases, same kind of thing there. Really every department needs a database person or needs a data analyst, someone who can take data and really manipulate it and put it into nice graphs and dashboards and whatnot. What do we provide centrally versus what's provided kind of a decentralized method? That's a tough question.
All right. Well, we're about to run up against a wall here. Kathy, I do see your question there about flagging the work order survey. We'll check into that. And I'll shoot you an email if we can have any options there. Brian, are there any other questions that you want to field since we only have a few more minutes here?
I don't think so. I closed the tab that I had all of them up on, so sorry about that.
Well, here, can I just one quick one? And yeah, it's really good because I don't think I run into people more and more that don't know anything about this, and it relates to getting discounts for hardware and software. Gene, can you give a quick soundbite on that?
Sure. If you will go to the ITS Google site, we have a page called Deals and Discounts, and it lists everything we have. Just to highlight it, Sprint, where to go for Apple discounts, where to go for computer discounts to CDWG, Microsoft, and any discount we have is listed there. So if you don't find it, just shoot me an email and I'll send you the link.
Good deal. Well, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. I hope that we hit most of these questions. that people had. I know IT covers a wide variety of services, and it can be confusing who does what. So I'm hoping that we at least handled that so that you have a little bit of an understanding of kind of what the different groups are, how they interact with each other. We know there's overlap between the groups, but if we use the help desk as kind of that first line of support, they can really make some good decisions about prioritizing what work orders and what issues go to the right resources. So let's continue that conversation. We will try to put answers to the questions that we've received, and I talked a little bit about trying to put together better support documentation. So even when we talk about lynda.com or the resources at Google for teaching yourself, we don't do a very good job yet, and I think we will, at filtering that information and making it really accessible to you so that you can get the information that you need and then go and do some more stuff on your own. That we understand that there comes a point where you really need some expertise, and at that point we want to bring people back together and provide that expertise, even if it's not within IT. So we may not be the experts on, how do I do registration within Campus View, but we can get to the right person who knows that stuff because they do it every day. So increasingly, we're trying to be the filter for that kind of information. So I hope it's been a helpful session from that standpoint. I want to reiterate that the annual survey is something that we do think of a lot, and we really value the feedback that people have given to us in that annual survey. So thank you first if you participate in that survey and provide feedback to us. We actually look at it and we can point to several things where we have changed things. The biggest one probably recently has been shifting our external support desk. That was really based on comments that we had gotten for a long period of time where people were just not happy with the after-hours support desk. So hopefully that's improving a little bit. But you should receive the feedback from the annual survey that will be out yet this week. Please take a few minutes and look at it and give us additional feedback on that. But it looks to me like things are going in the right direction. Also want to mention that October is Cybersecurity Month, so Jean has a whole variety of communications that will happen around Cybersecurity Month. So things about passwords, spam protection, virus protection, all of those kinds of things become important. So watch for those. And then last, I want to put another plug in for our upcoming sessions in October on both of the open forums. The first one on the 15th over the noon hour in Arizona on the Arizona campus, and then 2 weeks later on the 29th, both with Drs. Phelps and Gevitz. I think those will be good sessions. And again, open forum type things there, so get your questions ready. Thanks much. I hope it's helpful. Give us feedback and tune in a couple of weeks. Thanks much. Thanks, guys.